Collectibles are to Spyro games as YouTubers are to YouTube. Sure, you traverse different worlds, meet different characters, and end up facing different threats along the way. But at the heart of these games, our little purple friend has to set out on a quest to try and rescue and or recover something. In the first game, it's the Dragon Elders that Nasty Nork crystallised. In the second game, it's the Orbs for the portal to Dragon Shores. And the third, the Dragon Eggs. But what if there's more than meets the eye? What if these collectibles, so to speak, were meant to tell a story of their own? Hello YouTube watchers, it's your boy, Bobbledink here, and today I'm doing a deep dive into a mysterious aspect of the first game that's always baffled me. Why do we re-rescue the same dragons in the last level of the game? Let me show you what I mean. So you're playing Spyro the Dragon. You've just defeated the 5th boss and the balloonist is ready to take you to Nork Nexus, where you can finally face off against the main boss himself. But first, you arrive, and you're greeted with not very much, just a barren metal island with 3 dragon heads, reminiscent of the first homeworld, a portal to the left, and a crystallised dragon, standing proud and centre. When you free the dragon, this is what we see.
Hey, didn't I already free you?
You're in Nasty's world now, Spyro, and you are the dragon who must defeat him.
Bring him on! I'm ready!
Reach the exit in each of Nasty's lands. Then you can challenge the Nork himself.
Now, on my first playthrough of this game, way back when, I never questioned this. I always found it a little odd, but then it's never addressed again, so no harm, no foul. But soon enough, when I was making my Let's Play of this game, I began to notice that every dragon in this last homeworld makes a reappearance from some earlier parts of the game, to the point that I start wondering whether this was a deliberate narrative choice by Insomniac Games, or an oversight due to developmental time restraints. For the purpose of this video essay, I'd like to explore 2 key theories as to why this is, and then I'll give the lowdown on what my thoughts are. So this brings us to the first theory, that this is the result of a lack of time, money, and resources. Spyro the Dragon was the second game to be developed by Insomniac Games, 1 year after they released Disruptor. Despite being a commercial failure, Disruptor was a critical hit amongst gamers, and that led to Insomniac going full force on a second project. This time, a game about a dragon, thought up by gaming artist Craig Stitt. At the time, Insomniac Games was a relatively small team, made up of 13 people. Compare this to the team of over 300 people working on Spider-Man for PS4. On top of being a very small team, they were attempting to create a 3D open-world platformer game with an emphasis on interacting with enemies, with maybe the only comparable example at the time being Super Mario 64, but it was still a very different engine with very different hardware capabilities. The original trilogy made use of a 3D panoramic gaming engine developed by Alex Hastings, who felt it was a blessing to be making the game for the PS1, as it was able to handle complicated renders the way no other console could at the time. For example, the skyboxes they created contained over 5,000 polygons alone, and that's not including the parts of the map you traverse. Another groundbreaking aspect of this game design is the fact you could simply travel from one part of the world to another, depending on how high up you are on the level, thus adding an extra layer of challenge to world building. They even had help from Matt Whiting, a NASA engineer, to accurately design the flight controls for Spyro, and to make the camera move seamlessly behind him. And the point is, they did all this in the span of a year. They designed a groundbreaking game engine, 6 homeworlds, 5 flight levels, and a multitude of different platforming levels, as well as animating and writing dialogue for 80 different dragons. 81 if you include Spyro. At some point you start to realise how ambitious Spyro the Dragon truly was, and as such it can be reasonable to assume that they could have easily dropped the ball in a few places. One such place being the final homeworld having dragons that appeared earlier in the game. It's entirely possible that they simply hadn't had the time to create new dragon designs or names. You could even argue Spyro saying, "Hey, didn't I already free you?" was added in much later, as Delbin makes no attempt to acknowledge Spyro's initial confusion. It's like the 2 characters are talking past each other and not mentally in the same headspace. It gives a strong impression that Insomniac Games needed to come up with something quick that made sense but didn't change the overall direction of the game, thus the compromise. Now, this all seems plausible enough. They ran out of time and needed a quick fix, and a video, right? Well, what if there was another explanation? What if this was done deliberately? Which brings us on to the second theory, that this was a deliberate narrative choice. What do I mean by this? Well, in order to properly explain this, we first need to understand what the dragons are there to do. Of course, we understand Spyro is on a quest to free the dragons and defeat Nasty Nork. But what narrative purpose does each individual dragon have? How do they further the game? To answer this, I took the liberty of watching back each individual dragon cutscene, arranging them into a table, organised by homeworld, level, and the dialogue that appears in each cutscene, along with a category tag to effectively understand the general direction of the game. I won't go through every single detail of my research, but I've attached a link to the document in the description in case you're interested. The categories are as follows. Tutorial, any cutscene that references inputs or controls required to play the game. Tips/tricks, any cutscene that gives you a useful hint or reminder of how to progress in the game. Welcome, any cutscene where the rescue dragon welcomes you to the level or gives some background as to what happened. Doubt, any cutscene where the rescue dragon doubts Spyro's abilities. Encouragement, any cutscene where the rescue dragon shows encouragement or praise to Spyro for his progress. Comedy, any cutscene that is humorous or comedic in nature. Spyro, any cutscene where Spyro speaks and or interacts with the rescue dragon. Thank you for releasing me. Any cutscene that features the phrase "thank you for releasing me." Having gone to the lengths of making a whole table, this is what I found out. The game employs a good balance of tips/tricks, doubt and encouragement to keep some variety in how you interact with the dragons. The dragons can help spur you on without holding your hand or giving away how to do everything. The doubting dragons provide some good motivation for the player to want to get better by presuming the player will fall at the first hurdle. The encouraging dragons show the player that they have made some real progress and give them a cause to keep going. In terms of comedy, the game also shows a good number of moments often shared between Spyro and the dragons. These give us a good insight into their unique personalities, the history of the dragon realms, and the relationship Spyro shares with the rest of the dragons. Spyro also remains a consistent presence in many of these cutscenes, serving as a reminder that this game is about him and his journey to defeating Nasty Nork. In addition to this, only 23.75% of the cutscenes lay any reference to the fact these dragons were trapped in crystal and had just been rescued, and 18.75% of those cutscenes were of dragons saying "thank you for releasing me." This leads me to the overwhelming conclusion that the game cares less about believable storytelling and more about the player's progression from one level to the next. So does this rule out the possibility of there being some narrative reason behind re-rescuing the dragons? Not necessarily. Whilst there may not be a gigantic story arc in the way one might expect, doesn't mean there isn't an intention behind why those dragons make a reappearance. And to find out why, let's take a look at the dialogue for all 6 dragons in Nork Nexus. Starting with Delbin, let's have a look at his first cutscene in Artisans.
Where's Nasty Nork? I'll torch him.
Keep your horns on, Spyro! You have much to learn first. Do you know what the dragonfly following you is doing? His name is Sparks, and he's helping and protecting you. Keep an eye on him and see what I mean.
So this cutscene occurs right at the start of the game. Spyro has just started his quest to go after Nasty Nork and is eager to get his own back on the villain that just crystallised everyone he knows, perhaps emulating the player's own eagerness to 100% the game. Delbin, on the other hand, stops Spyro in his tracks and points out that he has to learn how to play the game and progress through levels. It can be assumed that Spyro's naivety around Sparks and his role is meant to reflect the player's first time playing this game, and not necessarily knowing all the mechanics yet. Why else would Spyro not know the name of the dragonfly he hangs out with all the time? Slight nitpick anyway. Let's take a look at Delbin's second cutscene in Nork Nexus.
Hey, didn't I already free you?
You're in Nasty's world now, Spyro, and you are the dragon who must defeat him.
Bring him on! I'm ready!
Reach the exit in each of Nasty's lands. Then you can challenge the Nork himself.
Aside from the fact his voice is different, which could boil down to any number of reasons, for example voice actors not being available, production time restraints, etc, What parallels can be drawn between the two cutscenes? Well, in the first cutscene, Delbin stops Spyro in his tracks, pointing out he has much to learn first. Here, Delbin is spurring Spyro on, demonstrating that our hero has come far and is now ready to face off with Gnasty Gnorc. Spyro in the first cutscene was eager to face off against Gnasty Gnorc there and then. Here, he has that same level of confidence, but now 5 homeworlds of experience and maturity under his belt. Let's move on to the other Gnorc Nexus dragon, Magnus. Here's what we hear from him in Peacekeepers.
Hi, Spyro! Sparks the Dragonfly has been doing a good job protecting you. Make sure to keep him strong by feeding him lots of butterflies.
There isn't an awful lot to unpack here. It should be noted from my table, however, that Magnus is one of the first dragons to give Spyro some encouragement, or sparks rather. But he serves as a crucial benchmark and is the first sign the player is making some serious progress.
Gnasty's ancient history now. So, what's in there?
I believe this is Gnasty's treasure hoard, but the gate will not open until you have found everything in the Dragon Kingdom. Come back when you have reached 100%.
With that being said, it only seems right that Magnus should be the one to push Spyro to complete the entire game. In other words, the player has more than proven themselves, and they now need to do that extra bit more to enjoy the rewards waiting for them inside. Now, let's see what we can glean from Lateef.
Welcome to the Dreamweavers, young one. While chasing Gnasty's minions in this world, you must expect the unexpected and prepare for what is not there.
Lateef here is cryptic and gives us a clue of the levels we're about to experience without giving too much away. He's kind of poetic in that sense, which is a nice unique change from the way the other dragons give Spyro hints on what to do.
Keep up the good work, Spyro. I expect Gnasty's really starting to worry about you.
I'd be shaking in my Gnorc boots if I were him.
So, are there many parallels here? Not so much. But I guess it's nice to see a friendly face and hear him give some good encouragement. The only difference I can point to is, in the first cutscene, Lateef is cryptic and mysterious, whereas in the second cutscene he is far more straight talking. It's also good to see Spyro remaining confident of his abilities. Now let's have a look at Tomas's dialogue.
Hey Spyro, press the jump button twice to glide, and don't be afraid.
Afraid? Of what?
Falling from high mountain peaks, plummeting into prehistoric glaciers?
Oh, that.
So here we see far more character than with the other dragons so far. What's unique about Tomas in this list is he gives us some helpful advice but also expresses some doubt in our hero's abilities. Unlike other dragons, however, these doubts seem to get to Spyro and shake him to his core, the first and only glimpse of Spyro showing any level of fear.
Wow! I never thought I'd be rescued, especially by such a little dragon. What I mean is, I always believed in you, Spyro!
You gotta believe!
And this is full circle. From expressing doubt over Spyro's abilities to now being rescued by Spyro right at the end of the game. There's even some comedy in Tomas trying to save face at the end of his dialogue, but luckily Spyro seems too fired up to let those doubts get to him any longer. What a king.
Welcome to Magic Crafters. I want you to release the dragons, reclaim our treasure, and recover the eggs from those pesky blue thieves.
Here, Cosmos welcomes us to the Magic Crafter's homeworld, and has a very New Age guru vibe about him. Everything he tells Spyro here is very much about freedom. Set our people free. reclaim what is rightfully ours, and recover our future generations from tyranny. It reminds me very much of real-world events and social justice, especially British game show host William G. Stewart, using 2 minutes of his own show, 15-1, to argue why Britain should return the Elgin marbles to Greece. Good times.
Thank you for releasing me.
The only real parallel I can draw here is from the word releasing. Cosmos' first cutscene demonstrated his selfless nature. He told Spyro to release their dragon brethren from autocracy and take back what's rightfully theirs. Here, he finally thanks Spyro for releasing him. It's a lesson on how we can be compassionate and fight for what is right, but that we should never lose sight of our own personal care either. Self-care isn't selfish.
Spyro, it's great to see you, but I've got to go.
This is easily the strangest cutscene of the whole game. One moment he's there, the next he's not. Where are you off to, buddy? Where are you going? Could he be off to rally up the troops?
Be on the lookout for Nort Commandos, Spyro.
They better be on the lookout for me.
I don't know why, but this feels like the perfect Cleetus cameo. Again, his words are brief, but his action poses are so memorable. This gives me vibes of the guy in the chair who never gets to leave the headquarters finally getting to kick some Nork butt. Or Po from Kung Fu Panda finally getting to live his dream as a kung fu fighter. And I fully believe Cleetus would have rounded up some of the other dragons to go after Nork. In fact, it'd be cool to see an animated short about this. Anyone interested in making this happen? Send me a cheeky DM. So now we've explored both theories, what do I think of all this? Well, I think there's an element of truth in both ideas. Spyro the Dragon was a groundbreaking, revolutionary game for its time, and as such meant Insomniac Games were building a lot from the ground up, including a new 3D panoramic game engine, 6 unique homeworlds, and nearly 80 different dragon designs. On the other hand, it's possible that they had this idea of re-rescuing the dragons as a way of bookending the gaming experience, which, to be fair, the dialogue we've just analysed does seem to support as well. Whether this was executed to the best standard is up for debate. At the end of the day, for all its faults, Spyro the Dragon continues to amaze and astound us all these years later. The game is far from perfect, sure, and definitely has its shortcomings, but what it lacks in polished performance, it makes up for in charm and intrigue. So much so that Insomniac Games would later go on to make 2 fantastic follow-ups that have captured the hearts of gamers around the world. So if you like Spyro, then stick around, subscribe and hit that notification bell, as there'll be plenty more Let's Plays of the Purple Dragon coming your way. And be sure to sound off your thoughts in the comments below. And until next time, Bobbledink out.